Hello, everyone. We're the Cohn Zone. I'm Grant. That's Lowell. We're the Cohns. We're in the zone today, and we're going to be talking about the Niners' upcoming game against the Patriots. It's a huge game. We're also going to be talking about Jed York and the nature of nepotism. But first, we have some business to take care of from last week. We made a bet on who would win the game. I'm usually wrong, and I usually lose these bets, but this time I got it right. And, Dad, you got to pay up.
And I'm about to pay up. I'm not good at showing things. Can you see this? This is a Franciscan. It's called Magnificat, and it's based on a piece of music by Johann Sebastian Bach called the Magnificat. And we bet a $50 cab. This is a Bordeaux blend, mostly cab, 75%, and other things. I found it in my cellar. It's probably my best bottle. And Iggy won it. So I hope maybe you'll let me take a sip.
Yeah. That's the thing. We make these bets, but then we drink the bottle together. So it's really just a present to both of us. So you get to see what we'll be enjoying in the near future. Dad, thank you. That's what's at stake in the Cohn Zone weekly.
I love to lose bets to you. This is a 2014. It's from Franciscan Winery in Napa, and it's I look at the ratings. They're way up high at 2014. So it's probably a little young, but definitely drinkable.
Johnny Cristo asked, "Is it a Meritage?" Explain. It's a blend, right?
Johnny Cristo, huh?
The Johnny Cristo.
Boy, hi Johnny.
Yeah,
we haven't been in contact for a long time.
He was one of the original guys on the Cohn Zone like 15 years ago, back when the Cohn Zone.
Then Johnny got angry at me.
Yeah, that happens. But he's still good.
Are we friends again?
Yeah, we're friends. We're friends.
Okay, good. This is from the Napa Valley. And it's mostly Cabernet grown in the Napa Valley. Now, the best wines use French grapes. So Cabernet is a classic French grape from the Bordeaux region. But this is a strictly California wine. And my guess is that when we drink this together within the next week or two, Iggy, we'll drink a glass to Johnny Cristo.
Yes.
And I bet we're going to love it.
I believe Johnny Cristo's a Calistoga guy. I could be wrong, Johnny, but I think he's a wine country guy. So I think Johnny, correct me if I'm wrong. Anyway,
did Johnny go to UCLA?
I don't know, Johnny. Did you go to UCLA? I don't know. I feel like I know that. He might have.
Okay,
we'll learn about Johnny.
I want to say something about, if you don't mind, about losing the bet.
Marin, UCLA, yes, class of '96. Nice.
Yeah, Johnny. Hi,
Johnny.
So, I really, really thought the Rams were going to win. I mean, I felt that you were going to be paying off to me.
Yeah.
And it just goes to show, first of all, how little I know and how really puzzling football is. If I predict a fight, I don't do it anymore because boxing doesn't exist. But when I used to, I was really right on most of the time. Mm-hmm. Football is very, very hard. And you forget how so much of it is matchups. For some reason, the Niners really match up well against the Rams, and they are able to expose Jared Goff for the very, very limited quarterback that he is.
Yeah, absolutely. The Niners are better coached than the Rams, and they have their defense makes the Rams offense look awful. The Rams offense isn't that great, and when the Niners go against a quarterback who can't move that well, they're still pretty dominant. The only time that they have their Achilles heel, their kryptonite, is the quarterback who runs around behind the line of scrimmage and makes plays last extra long, and Jared Goff can't do that.
No, he can't. I guess he's a bit of a stiff. I mean, I'm sure he's a very nice guy. He went to Cal and all of that, but he's a bit of a stiff, and he doesn't seem to seems to lose his cool under pressure. And by the way, since I'm just being a little loquacious now, Aaron Rodgers loses his cool also. If you hit him a little bit, he's not the same quarterback.
The two Cal guys.
Another Cal guy.
Yeah.
The Stanford guys are maybe
they're a little tougher. UCLA guys don't actually get into the NFL, the quarterbacks. Anyway, I want to say something. One of our topics was how everything changes in one game. Let's do that now. I mean, coming into this game, you were thinking this Niner team is dead. They stink. There's no way they can compete with the Rams. And now, a couple days later, you're like, you have to totally reorient your thinking after just one game. That's my favorite thing about football. I think it's so intellectually stimulating, don't you?
It's thrilling. It's
Yeah.
thrilling and fascinating. And it's like reading a great novel and you think you have it worked out, and the writer, he or she does something totally unexpected, and you have to rethink your whole
Yes.
position on the novel or the movie or the play. It's wonderful. And here's the thing, and I clearly I have to own up to this. Not only did I say the Rams would beat the Niners, I said the Niners were through.
Yes.
I said there's no chance they're going to make the playoff. I mean, I really deserve to lose that bottle of wine. Based on two horrible games, and they were horrible games, Iggy.
Mhm.
I had written them off for the whole season, and now F. Scott Fitzgerald, he was a good writer, and he had this image when you had to rethink things. You have to rearrange all the furniture in your mind. He had I paraphrase, but
Yeah.
now I have to move the couch from here to over there, and you know what I
Well,
mean?
absolutely. I mean, last week the question you were asking is, who can the Niners beat?
Right.
If they can't beat Miami and Philly, who can they beat? Now the question is, who in the NFC can the Niners definitely not beat? I mean,
Yes.
you saw what the Packers did against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Packers are coming up in a few weeks. All of a sudden, you're thinking, maybe that's a winnable game for the Niners. You know, who's to say they can't beat the Packers?
You're damn right. Who's to say they can't beat the Packers? And who's to say they can't beat the Rams again?
Oh, I would expect them to beat the Rams again.
Yeah.
They match up extremely well with the Rams. They don't match up well with the Cardinals. That's interesting. We know why, but Kyler Murray is just so athletic, and the Niners' defensive ends are big and not as athletic, and they have a tough time with them. So that's always going to be a tough matchup. And so will the Seahawks. That's a tough matchup, but they could probably do well against Tampa. Tom Brady can't move. Who knows?
But, Iggy, here's what I want to say.
Yeah.
I had written them off from the playoffs.
Right.
I take it back.
Right.
I take it. Now, also, there's another team gets in. There are 7 teams, right?
7. Yes.
So
9 and 7 does it. 8 and 8 might do it.
Yeah. So they have an extra shot because there is the 7th team, and they just beat, a quality outfit and one of their main competitors. So, but here's what's interesting. So now I'm ruling them in again. If they get whipped in New England, I could rule them out again. And it makes it seem like, guy, he doesn't know what he's talking about. He's all over the place. And that's the truth. I don't know what I'm talking about, and I'm all over the place. But I think a lot of people are that way with the Niners and with the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, because like you said, you can really predict a boxing match. If you know the two boxers, you can say when it's going to end, how it's going to end, and why. With football, there's too many players. It's way too. There's millions of variables to take into account, and that's what's so thrilling about it is no one can really project with accuracy what's going to happen in the game, and it's really thrilling. And I know that football wasn't always your favorite sport to write about. It's a lot of fun to cover, but sometimes it's hard to be visual because where do you focus on? What do you describe? With boxing, it's 2 guys in a spotlight. With baseball, it's a couple guys in a spotlight. It's very visual. But what I love about writing about football is that the world changes every week, like we're talking about. In baseball, a game ends, and everything the players and coaches are basically saying is, it's just one game, guys. It's just one game. We lost. We get them tomorrow. And it's true. And you can't overreact. In football, you can't overreact enough. I love that. Yeah.
Yeah. Baseball is very good because it usually comes down to one play or one performance.
Yes.
The pitcher or the home run or the double play that the shortstop started running into the hole. And you can describe it visually.
Yeah.
Football, game by game, is more exciting, except when you get to the baseball playoffs. They're wonderful.
Yes.
But it's overwhelming. Do you do the offensive line? Do you do the quarterback? Do you do the wide receiver? Do you do
coaches,
the coach?
the game plan, the scheme?
Yeah. And sometimes I have to admit, Iggy, I would be going down to the locker room without an idea, and I'd be sweating through my clothes. And when you started working with me, you'd say, calm down, Dan, calm down. Have you thought about it? Because you're a more precise thinker than I am. So
well, it's easy to be a precise thinker when you don't have to write the article. Dad, you should do this. That sounds easy.
And I would always say, thank you, dear. Yeah. Thank you, sweetheart. Yeah, really. So anyway, where we're at with the Niners now, and I say with the greatest humility, they're back in the hunt. I'm apologizing for what I said last week and pay it up with this bottle of wine, and I could change my mind in another week. So
Right.
I guess
Just real quick, if they lose to the Patriots, then they got another game on the road in Seattle. I think that game in Seattle is pretty much as close to a guaranteed loss as there could be, just because it's the second road game in a row. We saw the Niners do that. Remember, we went to New England, then they went to Seattle the next week and got killed. It's just hard. So this is the one to win. The Patriots are good but vulnerable. Let's break down this matchup, Dad. What do you expect?
Well, one other thing before we
Keep going. Keep going.
About going to Seattle. It's kind of gloomy up there. Did you tell that story?
Yeah, the Niners used to lose every year in Seattle, no matter how good they were during the Harbaugh years. And then I think it was like the final, it might have been the Chip Kelly year, but Ahmad Brooks was still on the team. And no matter what, they would lose in Seattle. So you and I would always go to Ahmad Brooks after the game. He was our favorite. For whatever reason, other writers didn't go to him so much. He might be a little intimidating. He's kind of crazy in a weird way. But we would go to him because he has no filter. And he doesn't mind hard questions because he's kind of detached from the whole thing. So you'd ask him, and he's also smart. Went to Virginia. Mom was valedictorian. Grew up around very, very smart people. So he would like to talk. And one of the questions was, Ahmad, why do you guys always lose in Seattle? And he's like, I know, right? That's a really good question. I've been thinking about that. And he starts like just going off. He's like, it's always really kind of gloomy up here. Maybe I was like, that's a good point. It is gloomy, man. They need to brighten it up here. I don't know why we were talking about that, but yeah, it's the gloom factor in 2 weeks. You got to factor that in.
It's the gloom factor.
That's why, usually home team gets 3 points because of home field advantage. You get the extra point in Seattle for the gloom.
Iggy, it was one of the greatest answers to any question I ever had in my life.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And it was so sincere.
It was. I don't know. So I've really been thinking about this and what I've come to. Like how you go to New York and you ask them, why is the pizza better here? They go, it's just the water.
That's what someone told my sister. It's the water.
It's the gloom.
I always thought it was the cheese. But okay, let's move on to next Sunday's game in New England.
Yes.
You can't say in Boston because God knows where that stadium is. In somewhere
it's closer to Providence.
Yeah. It is.
Yeah.
A lot of the teams stay in Providence. They don't stay in Boston.
Niner by Nature 88 just gave us a $5 tip and says, I love your guys' relationship. Hey, appreciate it. Thank you.
Oh, good. Well, that'll help me pay for this wine.
Yes. Now you're in. You're in. That helped my dad out.
I never had a tip before. Okay. Here's the thing. Ordinarily, I would say I firmly believe the 49ers are going to beat the Patriots. Take out firmly. I don't know what I'm talking about. I believe the 49ers are going to beat the Patriots. Is that okay for me to say? I believe
absolutely. They're going to beat the Patriots.
Why?
Yeah.
They played well last week.
Yes.
Whatever that means, I have no idea.
And the Patriots didn't. The Patriots lost to the Broncos, who are not as good as the Niners. So that's
they lost to freaking Broncos.
Freaking Broncos.
In addition, I gotta say, if they had Tom Brady, I think they'd be a better team. I really don't like Cam Newton, and I'd like to tell some reasons why. Okay.
Yeah.
First of all, I think he's an inferior practitioner.
Yeah.
I think a quarterback at a certain point has to stand and throw. Mm-hmm. Jimmy has to stand and throw, and last week he stood and threw. You have to stand and throw. This guy, I think every pass is an adventure. I think he's a different quarterback on every pass. It comes from a different arm slot. His feet aren't set. He's a great looking athlete, very handsome man, big, great athlete. Mm-hmm. And he is the Niners' kryptonite. He can run. That's the one thing he can do. And that does pose a problem for them because they have problems with quarterbacks like that. But he's undisciplined. He's emotional. Iggy, he's emotional.
That is the key point. Let's talk about that. He's emotional.
Okay. Yeah, you go on.
We were there when he lost the Super Bowl. We covered that game, all right? And he was the biggest star in the NFL at the time. He was Patrick Mahomes. And he was supposed to win the Super Bowl and be coronated as the best player in the league and take the mantle from Peyton Manning, who was on the way out. Well, that didn't happen. He was awful in that game, and there was a moment where he got exposed. He fumbled, and the ball was rolling around at his feet, and he had a split-second decision to make. It wasn't really a decision. It was a reaction. Do you jump on the ball or not? And he didn't. He let the ball roll around. It got recovered by the Broncos, and it was like in the biggest game of your life, you were protecting yourself and not selling out for the win.
It was a business. He made a business decision.
Business decision in his only Super Bowl appearance probably he'll ever have. So he has to live with that the rest of his life. After the game, they have the post-game press conferences, and they're all in the same area. The Panthers are here, the Broncos are here. And there's like a curtain between them, but they can hear each other. And there's speakers, and it's loud. So everyone goes to Cam Newton to interview him, and he's sulking, and like answering like really quietly, like not a good look. But that wasn't the worst of it. The worst is that right behind him is Chris Harris Jr., one of the cornerbacks for the Broncos, and he's just shouting into the microphone, we just felt like if we could make Cam Newton have to be a quarterback and like just keep him in the pocket and make him throw, we know we can't do that because he's a terrible quarterback. And like Cam Newton just like listening to it and just like, and he just gets up and leaves. It's like the criticism was right. It hurt him to his core, and he couldn't even finish the interview. He's like, oh, man, like I was supposed to be LeBron James. This was supposed to be my coronation. And they're making fun of me, like to my face, and I have to sit here and take it. I can't do it. I'm out. So he doesn't seem to have whatever like inner character and strength that Jimmy Garoppolo has. I saw Jimmy lose a Super Bowl too. He didn't do that.
Iggy, I want to say one more thing, which is very important.
Yeah.
There's a Super Bowl week. There's a whole week leading up to the game, and the game was here. Mm-hmm. So we interviewed one day in San Jose, Peyton Manning.
That's right.
And now this is an all-time great quarterback. You could say he doesn't win a lot of Super Bowls.
Yeah.
All-time great quarterback. Well, there were 100 media people, and he was sitting on a stage. All the questions were about Cam Newton.
Every single one. Peyton, how impressed are you with Cam Newton? Peyton, do you think Cam Newton could be the greatest quarterback of all time one day? Peyton, it's like, and he's sitting there like, being patient. But at a certain point, he's like, you know what? He's still a very young quarterback. He shows promise, but he has a lot to accomplish, didn't he?
And he certainly did. And the point is, he had to suffer the indignity of being swept aside for this neophyte, and he finally had to put things into perspective the way he could, or Elway could, or Montana could. You're giving him a coronation too soon. Right. Let's see what he does in his career. Not to mention, let's see what he does in the Super Bowl. Well, Peyton Manning won the Super Bowl, and this kid didn't win the Super Bowl.
Right.
So you saw how one man handled this indignity with dignity, with honor, with stature, and won the goddamn game. And the other guy was parading around all week like a glamour king.
Now, okay, real quick, let me make the case for the Patriots. Not that I'm picking the Patriots, but let's give them their due. That was about 5 years ago. Cam Newton was a young man. Since then, he's fallen completely out. He's not a celebrity anymore. He got replaced in Carolina. He's not making any money in New England. He's on a 1-year deal. I don't think he's the same type of egotistical player he was when he was 25. Also, the fact that he has the ability to scramble makes this an interesting matchup, because we saw what Carson Wentz did. Carson Wentz is a better athlete at this point than Cam Newton, but Cam Newton can still run around. He doesn't have a great wide receiver to throw to, but neither did Carson Wentz. So that's one way that it can be a game. But then I would expect the Niners defense to play well against Cam Newton and keep the Patriots to less than 20 points. The issue is the Niners offense, Dad. I mean, they have the better quarterback, but it's not like Jimmy looked that comfortable and confident in the last game. And he's going against Bill Belichick, who knows him better than anyone. And the people who have had success against the Niners recently are the Belichick disciples. Like, I don't know if you're aware, but the Miami head coach, Brian Flores, was, he was the defensive coordinator for the Patriots. So what Belichick could figure it out on his own, but all he has to do is watch the Miami film and say, oh, okay, well, right there. A couple of things that Miami does, they're constantly using different fronts with their defensive line, which just means that the Niners have to get to the line of scrimmage and say, okay, you block him, you block him, you block him, and like assign it. And the center has to do that. And he keeps messing up. It was Ben Garland. And a lot of times against the Dolphins, you see a guy get totally unblocked and just crush Jimmy Garoppolo. It was a communication thing because they're constantly using different combinations up front that the Niners haven't practiced against. That's part of it. The other thing is the coverages they use. They use aggressive man-to-man coverage. They put the cornerbacks right in the wide receiver's face, not something the Rams didn't do. And the whole idea is don't let people be wide open right away. Make Jimmy Garoppolo hold the ball for a couple of seconds and go to a second read, maybe. And if you can do that, he gets jittery. You have a chance. You saw what he looked like against the Dolphins. So the Niners offense are going to have to be prepared for a defensive game plan that eviscerated them less than 2 weeks ago. They're a very well-coached team too, but it's going to be a very interesting matchup.
Iggy, I'm going to add one thing. Excuse me, I'm coughing. You say when Belichick looks at the Dolphins film, he's going to call Flores.
Exactly.
What do you mean look at the film? He's going to say, I saw
Who's to say Flores didn't call Belichick before the game and say, Bill, what do you suggest?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, these people are friends.
Right.
They're on the phone like you would be on the phone with your friend.
True.
What did you see? I'm planning on doing this. What do you think? I mean, this stuff goes on.
Right.
Do it.
Another reason that this game is going to be interesting is the Jimmy factor. I've just been watching the film this morning, and he made some nice throws, but he is still a little shaky. He's still a little shaky. And what Shanahan did in that game was make things as comfortable for him as possible. It's like putting training wheels back on the bike. But as soon as the training wheels come off, it was like this season, when he throws the ball more than 15 yards past the line of scrimmage, he's 5 for 12. And when he throws the ball more than 20 yards past the line of scrimmage, he's 0 for whatever. So it's very much controlled, kind of like a John Gruden passing attack. And to beat the Patriots, you might have to throw the ball more than 5 yards, 10 yards down the field. So I'm not saying they can't do it, but I think Jimmy needs to take the next step. They can't just do the same thing they did against the Rams and win.
Iggy, what about Mostert being out?
That's a big deal too. Even if he's not averaging 6 yards a carry, he ran the ball 16 times in the first half and controlled the game, I think. I mean, you can't hand the ball to Deebo Samuel 16 times in the first half. You can't hand it to Jerick McKinnon 16 times in the first half, but you can hand it to Mostert, and he did well, and now he's hurt. And now it's like, well, will Kyle Shanahan feel like, will he get away from the run game if it's not doing well? Will he stick with it and get to 35, 40 rushes without Mostert? I don't know. And if they don't, now you're asking the offensive line to pass protect Jimmy Garoppolo to, yeah, it's tough. So if they lose the game, we could pick out 5 reasons why they might lose this game right now. But the fact that they're going against Cam Newton, he doesn't have a great wide receiver to throw to. I think the Niners defense once again should carry him to victory because Robert Saleh is doing an even better job than he did last year.
I want to say, I'd like to emphasize that Saleh takes a lot of heat for losses. He's a very good coach. I mean, I'm really impressed with him. He is thinking, if you think of it as chess, he's often ahead of the offensive coordinator. He's often a move or 2 or 3 ahead. I think he's going to make Cam Newton look like the chump he is.
I agree. What's so impressive about Saleh, real quick, he's evolved incredibly in 4 years. When he came to the Niners, he'd never been a coordinator, and he basically just installed what he learned in Seattle, the Seattle Pete Carroll defense, which is a certain thing. There's like 5 guys on the defensive line. You play cover 3 all the time, and that's what it looks like. They don't do any of that anymore. I mean, they do it a little bit, but they have a 4-man line. They don't play cover 3 that much. They play a lot of man-to-man coverage, I mean, I don't want to get into too specific, but he's basically made his own defense by his 4th season here. He's not like when Vic Fangio was with the Niners, he was about 60 years old. He'd been a position coach since the 80s. He'd been a coordinator 2 times before. He had kind of like mastered his craft. Robert Saleh is just learning his craft, and he has gotten so much better. Last year, you could be like, well, he does some interesting stuff, but he's got Nick Bosa, D Ford, DeForest Buckner. How much does he really have to do? This year, his best player is a middle linebacker who makes it an impact, but he's not like a sack guy or a guy who's going to cover wide receivers. And they still have a top 5 defense. If I were thinking about hiring Robert Saleh as a head coach last year, I'd be even more impressed this year.
Okay. Well, again, so I'm picking the Niners in this game, and my last word on this is please don't trust me on this. I don't know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, and I don't really feel confident enough to propose a wager with you. I think we're just going to
No,
let this one happen.
I can't lose a $55 bottle of wine every week.
Every week. No,
I can't do it.
No, the Cohn Zone does pay well, but not that well.
Oh, the Cohn Zone pays? Because I never got paid.
We just got $5. I'll split it with you.
Okay, $2.50. I just got paid $2.50. All right.
All right. I think it's time. We're about 25 minutes in. We've restrained ourselves. Let's talk about Jed York leaving the game against the Dolphins, because I broke that story, and it is a story. Dad, it's a story, right?
Oh, first of all, I have to say, we've been joking around, but to me, this is deadly serious.
Yes.
Deadly serious. And it's about, for me, the nature of Jed York as a person, as an owner, but even more important for me, it's the nature of current journalism.
Thank you.
Nature of current journalism. So, Iggy, catch people up. Tell them what happened.
Yeah, real quick. What happened was during the Dolphins game, the Niners were down 30-7 at halftime. No fans in the stands. Jed York decides he wants to leave. From what I heard, left in a huff, got in his car, got out of there, was so, I don't know, angry or whatever, that he actually drove the wrong way down a blocked off street, and police officers had to actually stop him and say, Jed, you can't do that. Even though you own the team, you got to go this way. So he left, bailed at halftime on his team, which is something that I'd never heard of an owner doing. And also I felt that if an owner in any other market had done something like that, New York, Dallas, LA, it would be national news, let alone local news. Jerry Jones did that. People be talking about it on ESPN the next morning. Was he right? Was he wrong? Is that a good look?
Yeah. I want to just emphasize a verb. He ran out on his team.
Bailed. Ran out.
Like the spoiled brat we used to think he was. I'm not messing around here. This is serious stuff. It's very important what an owner does. He's the leader of that whole organization. And if he can't face the heat, who the hell does he expect anyone to be facing the heat there? Okay, so that's the basis of it. We're going to get into more because Ira Miller phoned me about this.
If you don't know who Ira Miller is, Ira Miller covered the 49ers from the late 70s into the early 2000s for the Chronicle. He's the greatest NFL beat writer of all time. He is the gold standard. He broke stories weekly, and not the kind of stories like the Niners are calling up so-and-so from the practice squad today. He broke stories that made the Niners uncomfortable all the time, and they had to do business with him because he was that important and powerful.
Okay, well, let's say what Ira did. So Ira called me at home yesterday, and he was laughing. You know, Ira used to live up here in Oakland by us, but they moved out back toward Chicago. But Ira and I are dear friends. We talk about every 2 or 3 weeks. And we covered the great Niner teams together. So he called up and he was laughing, and he said, Jed, hi, Lowell. So Jed ran out on the team. He said, you think that was news? And I said, well, yeah, Ira, I think it was news. I said, do you think it was news? He goes, hell yeah. What the owner does is news. And he said, what I want you to do, the reason I'm calling, I don't have Iggy's email. I want you to call Iggy and express to him my admiration. And the word the great Ira Miller used, please, and he calls him Iggy because he's known him since he was born. Please pass on my admiration to Iggy.
It's the biggest compliment you can get in journalism from Ira. I mean, my God.
It's like getting a Pulitzer.
He's never passed on his admiration to me in my life. My God.
I don't think he's ever praised me, Iggy. I don't think he ever praised me.
Yeah. Isn't he in the Hall of Fame? He's in the Hall of Fame, right?
Yeah, in the NFL Writers Hall. Of course.
Yeah, he's in the Hall of Fame. Okay, go.
All right. So I said, it's very interesting, Ira, and I appreciate it. But, the other reporters, none of the other reporters reported this, not even as a note, let alone an article. And Ira laughed and he said, things have changed a lot, Lowell, since we wrote. I said, what do you mean, Ira? He said, well, a lot of these people now want to be on the right side of the organization. I said, what do you mean by the right side of the organization? He said, a lot of them want the organization to like them. And he said, they didn't want to write this I believe, about Jed, because then they'd be on the wrong side of Jed.
Right.
And he said, please remind Iggy of this. And you knew it, Lowell, and I knew it. We don't care if they like us. We want them to respect us.
Mm-hmm.
And he said it again. We don't care if they like us. We want them to respect us. Mm-hmm. Well, how can you respect reporters who don't report news because they're afraid to report it?
That's not reporting.
No, it's not reporting.
It's not reporting.
Not reporting. It's like hyphenating.
What'd you call it?
Not reporting. It's one word.
It's like you're trying to partner up with them.
Mm-hmm.
How can we make money together? What's the best move for both of us here? What are you talking about?
I don't know about their motivation of money.
Yeah, I don't know what the motivation is. I have no idea what the motivation is.
It does seem cowardly.
It's weird.
And
what's in it for you? I know what's in it for Jed.
Ira's attitude was, I want him to respect me. And I want to tell you something. One time when Ira was covering the team, he got a source who told him what every single player was making. And he published it in the Chronicle.
Nice.
Well, needless to say, the 49ers weren't happy with Ira, but he had his facts right, and they respected him for it. And they realized they couldn't mess with him.
Your job as a beat writer isn't just to break the news that the Niners are okay with you breaking. Keep in mind what stories your favorite beat writers break. Do they affect the Niners in any way, or is it just so-and-so is going on IR in 45 minutes, I was first on it? Yeah. Keep in mind, if someone ever breaks a story that the Niners would be uncomfortable about, because that guy's an independent agent.
And he's speaking truth to power. That's one thing journalists do. Now, the power in sports is not like the power in the White House, but you need to speak truth to power. You don't go along with their propaganda. I'll give another example. When I was at the Chronicle, one of the 49ers players, this was a long time ago, told me that, I got to tell you something, Lowell, Bill Walsh is drug testing us. It's against the law in San Francisco. We're incorporated in San Francisco. Check it out. It's against the law. He's breaking the law. I checked with some other players, and he was drug testing them because he was afraid of what was going on. Mm-hmm. Well, I confronted Bill, and he had to admit it. I wrote a column. Bill Walsh was illegally, and Bill Walsh has never changed his attitude toward me. We were whatever we were. He understood that I did my job. He didn't deny it. He tried to explain it, but the point is, he respected me for it. And later, we did a book together.
I got to say, just from I wasn't alive in the 80s, and I only started being a journalist in the 2010s. But from what I've perceived is that in the 80s, the power dynamics between a professional team and a newspaper like the San Francisco Chronicle was kind of even. Your horsepower was up there with Joe Montana's or Bill Walsh. When I got into it, newspapers are dying. They have no clout locally or money. And these football teams have become billion-dollar enterprises. And the power dynamic is it's not even comparable. And what I've noticed is that most writers, and I'm not talking about anyone in particular, across the country are terrified of these organizations and feel that they need to survive as journalists. They need the team on their side, period.
Okay. I have one final thing to say on this, what I consider really important topic. The people who cover the 49ers, and you're my friends, you should have written about what Jed York did. It's absolutely news. What the owner does, especially when he runs out on his team at a bad moment that he can't face it. And don't just listen to me. Ira Miller said it too.
You don't have to judge Jed York for leaving, but you should write it, report it, describe it. It happened. Don't do Jed York a solid. When did he ever do you a solid? And what do you get from it other than compromising your own integrity? Is that enough?
I think so. I need to take a deep breath, but yes.
The final topic before we can answer some questions about nitty-gritty Niner stuff is nepotism. People always come back to that with me. That, like, for example, when I broke the story about Jed York last week and no one reported it, you asked, well, why? And people said, well, Grant has no credibility because you got him the job at the Press Democrat, as if that made it invalid that Jed York left. That invalidated the fact that Jed York left. So let's talk about me and nepotism.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Iggy, what it means when, and I get this all the time, I get it on my Twitter, and it's when Iggy writes something that burns up 49er fans. That's where I get it. And they say, Daddy got him a job. I mean, who is he? And it means you're a fraud.
Mm-hmm.
It means you're a fraud.
I'm a total fraud. I shouldn't even be allowed to have a space to write and report on this team. I shouldn't have a credential.
Yeah, it means you're a fraud like Jed York.
Yeah, because he was like, who are you to call Jed York a nepotism guy? You're even worse.
Okay, so You know what? I want to tell everybody, because, I've been holding this in for a decade, and I want to tell how Iggy got his gig at the Press Democrat and beyond.
Mm-hmm.
Iggy, about 10 years ago, Mom and I had gone to the Big Island in Hawaii with my dear friend Gary Furness, who's a doctor in Santa Rosa, and with his wife and 2 daughters. Mm-hmm. And we were spending a week. We had a wonderful time. And Iggy was in our house here. One day, I took a short flight to Honolulu because I have a friend, Richard Frankel, who lives there, a doctor. Mm-hmm. And he was my older brother, rest in peace. He was my older brother's roommate at Yale Medical School, a wonderful guy. And I spent the day with Richard. And then on the way back, I went to I don't think I even had a cell phone then. I went to the airport. I was flying back to tell Mom I was, when I'd land and be back where we were staying. And Mom said, boy, the most exciting thing just happened. I said, what? She said, the Press Democrat called Iggy today and wants to offer him the 49ers blog.
And again, I had been freelancing for Comcast Bay Area for a year, which is now NBCSN Bay Area, and been getting very good page views and hits and comments.
And you had done some articles for the PD.
Yes, I had. I covered a Stanford UCLA women's soccer game. Remember that?
Yeah. And the editor is a dear friend of mine named Bill Pinella.
Yes.
So Bill Pinella called Iggy and said, how would you like to write a 49ers blog for us? We'll pay. They weren't going to pay him very much, but on a freelance basis. Well, Dawn was very excited. And Dawn is my wife. And I was at the airport and I said, why would he want to take something like that? And I said, I want him to be a columnist, a freaking blogger. Yeah. So I want everybody to know, I didn't want him to have that job. I didn't get him that job, although clearly he was offered it because the editor knew him and was friends with me. And if he didn't know me, he probably wouldn't have gotten that gig. Obviously, of course. Mm-hmm. But I was against it. So I got back to where we were staying, and Gary Furness, Dr. Furness, came into our room and he said, sit down, Lowell. We sat at a table and he said, Iggy got offered this thing from the Press Democrat. He said, and you said no? He said, it's a no-brainer. He should take it. It's a no-brainer. And I had to think, what a schmuck I am. Like he's going to be an instant columnist? Yeah. So for the next 10 years, Iggy worked at the Press Democrat without a full-time job, without benefits. They didn't even pay his mileage from Oakland to Santa Clara. He worked for what my mother would call bupkis.
I worked for like less than minimum wage for a decade. Yeah. And I would occasionally go on the road to cover games. Who do you think paid for that?
I paid for it. They didn't pay for his airfare or for we went out for a meal. Iggy, I paid for him, and they were getting free coverage. So in any event, it's true he got this minor gig at the PD, but he excelled. So after a while, this bunch, Bleacher Report, came to you. Yes. Who I didn't know anybody there. And then now Sports Illustrated scouted you and you have a wonderful gig. You left the PD. I don't know anybody at Sports Illustrated. So yes, he initially got the thing, which was bupkis at the Press Democrat because he was my son. And I said, don't take it because I'm a schmuck. And now Iggy has moved way, way ahead. And there's been no nepotism because I don't know anybody. He's done it on merit. And you know what? So here's the deal. Whenever anybody in the future writes a comment on my Twitter, nepotism, blocked. Because now you know the story.
Here's the thing. Everyone gets, a helping hand in their life somewhere. No one opens every door on their own. Someone opens a door for you, but the key is, what do you do? I mean, I was given a job covering a team for $1,000 a month. I mean, I made something out of it. I made a career out of it. Now I'm totally self-sustainable. I worked extremely hard. I never gave up. I went from making about $1,000 a month to $2,000 a month in 10 years. I mean, it was, a lot of people would have quit. There was, and I never was like, hey, maybe I should be a substitute teacher. Maybe I should go to law school. Like, it was either this or I was going to be a bum. And so it worked out. But just because someone gives you a helping hand in life doesn't mean it's going to work out for you. You have to take it the rest of the way. And I think I sort of have. I'd like to think that I have.
Well, I'm proud of you, and I think it's true. I did give you a leg up, and you know what? I don't apologize for it. Then
Del Curry gave Steph Curry a leg up. Imagine being able to learn how to shoot from Del Curry every day, or learn how to play football from what's Jim Harbaugh's dad's name? Jack Harbaugh. I mean, yeah, I grew up in your house. I got to learn how to be a journalist, how to write. That's not fair at all. It's really an unfair advantage that I got. The advantage was not that you knew Bill Piniella, and it was that I got to grow up around you and talk about writing, talk about journalism. That way, when I got to that level, I had a concept of what good journalism is and what good writing is, which actually makes me kind of unique in this industry all of a sudden.
And you also learn you don't care if they like you.
Right.
You want them to respect you. That's what you learned. Iggy, in all the time that you've known me, I don't have friends who are athletes.
When I got to the beat, I was expecting to see the beat that Ira Miller left and created. And it was like, wow, this is really not what my dad described when I was growing up. This is a whole different thing.
Yeah.
So I want to say real quick, as we were going through and talking about our life stories, East Bay Chris gave us a $50 tip and Everett Kramer gave us a $55 tip. Those guys are way too generous. Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I mean, Ev, now he's given us a great bottle of wine. He's given us this. East Bay Chris kills me. I love the stuff he writes.
It'd be fun when the world opens up again to do like a Cohn Zone in person somewhere, like at like a bookstore or something, and actually get all the crew together. Because it seems like there's about 30 of us who are always here, including Hoover, Alabama down there. I don't know if we could get him out of Hoover, but I know he's watching.
Would Johnny Cristo come?
I think Johnny Cristo would come, absolutely. And some people might come just to tell us how much they don't like us, which is cool. I'm thinking of creating some T-shirts. One that says, I like Grant Cohn, and another one that says, I hate Grant Cohn. I think people might want to buy them. Yeah, exactly. I think so. Because, the other day, I was getting my hair cut in Oakland, and it was like an outdoor barbershop. And a dad and his son walked by. The son's like 13, and the dad's probably 50. And they both look at me, and they're like, and it's like it's clear they know who I am, but neither one smiles, and they both kind of whisper at each other. I'm like, oh, I think they don't like me. I think they know exactly who I am, and they're like, hey, screw that guy. That's Grant right there. So I'm thinking there's certain people who like me, there's certain people who really don't, and I should be able to profit off of both subsections of society. So I'm going to think about that. Just T-shirts. If you want an I Hate Grant Cohn T-shirt, let me know. I will make those for you and charge you $28.99. So you can express your hatred after paying me. Dad, let's say what?
Yeah, I was going to say, it's very hard to hate Iggy. I mean, he's really a nice guy. And one thing about him, he's very silly. Have you seen his videos where he takes credit for the Niners beating the Rams?
I'm 100% serious in those videos, Dad. Are you kidding? I'm the leader of this team.
The Committee of Common Sense, is that what it's called? It's fantastic.
That way I can just stand on the sideline every once in a while, walk up to Kyle Shanahan, take his headset off, pull one ear and say, Kyle, run the freaking ball. And then I'm done. And then I earn my paycheck for the day.
Okay. Are we going to answer questions?
Yeah, guys, ask some football questions and we will answer them. We got about 15 more minutes. Guy says, your vlog is better than your blog. You're very funny on camera. I'm very silly. I can be silly.
You're very silly.
Remember that time in Hawaii when we were—
I knew you were going to bring it up. Tell the story.
We were in, this is my favorite thing I ever did. I was 14 and we were in Hawaii. We had just gotten snorkel stuff and we were practicing in the pool. I don't know why we were practicing, but we were like in the shallow end snorkeling around. And I saw like a bunch of 30-year-olds in the in the hot tub, like socializing. You know what I mean? Like, they were
drinking wine.
and drinking wine. Probably singles talking to each other and trying to talk about politics and stuff. So I had to say, Dad, watch this. So I got out of the pool with my flippers on and my snorkel on and just walked into the hot tub and sat there with a very straight face for about 10 minutes. And the 30-year-olds, they couldn't acknowledge it. So they all looked at me and they kept talking and they just pretended that there wasn't a kid sitting there snorkeling in the hot tub for 10 minutes. And that's pretty much my sense of humor. I try to pull off weird stuff with a straight face, and usually I can.
Iggy, I almost drowned in the hot tub.
The best was how they wouldn't look at me. It's like, no, it's not happening. It's not happening.
That there wasn't a crazy child there, right?
It's not happening. It's definitely not happening. Okay, ask some Niner questions. All right. Look, you saw that rookie running back 38. Do you think he should get more carries? Do you think with Mostert out, that's a big blow? If you were would you be given more? I mean, you could see the running backs. Would you be giving it to Jerick McKinnon or JaMychal Hasty?
Both. I'd give it to both. And they do different things.
Absolutely.
Yes, but I think the real question is, will he be more involved? And I would say, because I don't believe that Kyle Shanahan is out of his mind, he will involve him much more.
Hasty. It was funny. We asked him about Hasty yesterday, and the real reason that they brought Hasty in the game is that McKinnon didn't look too great. But what Shanahan said was, we always rotate our running backs, and it was a perfect time to bring in someone and change the pace and yada, yada, yada. So he wouldn't put down Jerick McKinnon, but it was clear they needed a spark. They got a spark from JaMychal Hasty, and they'd be crazy to go back to Mr. 2 ACL surgery Magoo, who, no offense, but it's hard. I mean, JaMychal Hasty hasn't had that. So, yeah, absolutely. I wouldn't write off the Niners. It seems like they always have a guy at running back who was on the practice squad and was really good. I mean, Mostert was a practice squad guy.
Now, remember, I think the Niners are going to win this game.
Right. And we're extremely confident about that. No. Mostly because of Cam Newton's psychological state, which we don't like. Is McDaniels, where is that? Someone asked, is McDaniels better than Kyle? Is Josh McDaniels better than Kyle?
I want to say that's a legitimate question.
That is a legitimate question. Thank you, Emma99.
Iggy, we know one game. Was it a Super Bowl where things were not working for Mc? What was that game?
Legendary. It was 2 years ago when they played the Rams. The Rams defense was doing great. Wade Phillips was just doing great, and there was nothing that the Patriots offense could do. They were losing. I think they were losing. I don't know if it was close. End of the game, Josh McDaniels basically throws away the entire game plan, brings the offense around him on the sideline, says, guys, I know we didn't game plan for this. I know we didn't even practice it in the lead up, but it's something we did in the past. We've done this before. Bear with me. It's going to work. And he created a plan of attack in the fourth quarter of the Super Bowl with the season on the line. The amount of pressure, you can't even imagine. And he pulled it off. And basically what he did was he went to a very heavy personnel, 2 tight ends, 2 running backs, and a wide receiver, so that the Rams would match up with their heavy defense, lots of linebackers and defensive linemen. But then the Patriots went empty backfield, no running back, 5 wide. So you put all those guys out there and have them being covered one-on-one by people who don't cover, and it freaking worked. It's legendary.
Okay, so the question is McDaniels better than Kyle? Let's define what we mean. He's not a better head coach. He's failed as a head coach.
Correct.
Right? Okay. And in fact, miserably.
Yeah, we've talked about Kyle Shanahan's leadership. Josh McDaniel, oh my God, not a leader. Shanahan's kind of down like Belichick. McDaniel looks like players straight up hate him. Keep going.
Okay, but as a coordinator, McDaniels. He's won a Super Bowl.
Yes, and that's the thing. Like, you could say that Shanahan might be more creative than McDaniels, maybe, but Shanahan hasn't won a Super Bowl. Shanahan's had multiple opportunities, and he's been one of the main reasons he didn't win. McDaniels come through with the pressure on. So some people, it depends on what you're grading on. If you're grading on creativity and what you think a guy could do in the future, maybe you think Shanahan has more potential. But if you're actually grading on what guys have done and what they've accomplished, it's McDaniels.
Yes, as a coordinator, not as a head coach.
Right.
So
absolutely.
I want to say that's a really good question.
It is a really good question. It's a really good question. Also, one more topic. Belichick talked yesterday. to the Niners beat writers. He did his weekly press conference, which was interesting. It's almost like he's too famous to do that, right? Like he would get on the call with us. Anyway, so what he did that was interesting. Few things. He praised Jimmy Garoppolo through the moon. He loves Jimmy Garoppolo, his personality, his family, his work ethic, everything. And then when he asked about Cam Newton, he gave the most perfunctory praise ever. Like, yeah, he's only been here for a little bit. I didn't even know him that well before he got here. I mean, if the players respect him, which is good, I mean, that was about all he would say about him. I was like, whoa. Now, Bill Belichick's he's very strategic. He historically praises the other team and doesn't praise his own very much. But it was I really believe that he would love to have Jimmy Garoppolo back right about now. And Cam Newton, Cam Newton got COVID. And one of the things with the Patriots is they've had outbreak after outbreak, and they haven't been able to practice the last couple of weeks. So that's part of the reason they've had problems. They should have a full week of practice, and they might be a little bit more competitive this week. But coming back, Belichick seems like, man, I really miss Jimmy. I really miss Jimmy. And the other thing he was saying is how great George Kittle is. This is the classic Belichick thing. He'll pick a player that he wants to praise through the moon. And he just said Kittle's the best tight end he maybe ever seen. There's nothing he's not good at. And from Kittle's perspective, he hears that's like, oh my God, Bill Belichick likes me. But what Belichick does is he shuts that guy down every time.
That's what he's telling you. I'm going to shut him down
every time. And he even said, it's hard. You can't try too hard to shut down Kittle because the Niners have other guys who can hurt you. Dad, they're going to shut him down. They're going to shut him down. It's going to be interesting.
Yep. Iggy, I have a few questions about Belichick because I don't know him at all. Yes. How long did he talk?
He gave us 15 minutes. He gave us 15 minutes. He wasn't talking like at ease and freely. He doesn't do that. It's so interesting. You'll ask him a question and there'll be like a 10-second pause where he's basically game planning. It's like, okay, what are you asking? What are you really asking? What's a fair answer? What's the most I can give you? What's the least I can give you? Okay. I love listening to it. Like, for example, people kept trying to ask him, what led to the trade of Jimmy Garoppolo? Can you take us back through the timeline? Who called who? And he would go, what are you really asking? What are you trying to get? And he'd go, you know what? That was 3 years ago. I don't really see the need to rehash all that stuff. He's a good player, but let's focus on the present. That's the same kind of stuff Jim Harbaugh would have done too. He's really savvy. And it's like he's playing defense. He's a defensive coordinator. What are you trying to get right now? Are you trying to get a 15-yard pass over the middle? Are you trying to get a touchdown down the sideline? I'm not going to give you that. I'm not. I'll give you something. I'll give you the check down over the middle and you'll be happy. But I thought it was really interesting. I
love it. Yeah. Now, Iggy, does he show any warmth or is he just businesslike?
Businesslike. If you get him to praise a player, he might go off and give some warm things to say about Jimmy Garoppolo, George Kittle. But if you ask him to praise his own players, not going to happen. Not going to happen. What do you really like about Cam Newton? Long pause. I mean, his teammates love him. He's a good, he's done some good things for us. It's like the bare minimum. And what I was thinking when listening to him is we were talking a lot about Kyle last week about his lack of charisma. Dad, he is emulating Bill Belichick. I swear. He sees himself as the next Bill Belichick. Everything that Kyle does, his tone, his demeanor is Belichickian. It is.
Did he seem put out, Belichick, that he had to talk to you?
Yes, but he did it anyway. And he was 15 minutes late. And he double booked us. He put us at a certain time, but he decided to take a radio interview anyway, and we had to wait. But he came and he gave us 15 minutes. And the other thing, every coach does it on Wednesday. Because by Wednesday, you've actually looked at the film of your upcoming opponent. Belichick didn't want to do it Wednesday. For whatever reason, it was more convenient for him to do it on Monday. So when we would ask him questions like, well, what have you seen from the Niners? What did you see in their game against the Rams? I haven't watched that film yet. I haven't looked at that yet. I know about the Niners in general, but we haven't watched their latest game. Well, great, Bill. Thanks. Maybe we could have got you on Wednesday.
Iggy, does he generally do it on Monday?
I don't know. I mean, this is the first time the Niners have played the Patriots in a long time.
Right.
I don't remember.
That's very interesting. It's actually not fair to do it on Monday.
No, it's not fair. But again, there was something about him doing it that was like, this is weird. Like, isn't he too famous for it? It was weird to have him on my phone, answering questions and having to listen to all of us and like actually do it. It was like, wow, I guess winning 6 Super Bowls doesn't make you exempt from this.
I'm going to say something very important, though. What I always felt as a journalist was, whose agenda am I on? I want in an interview to be on Lowell's agenda. Clearly, what he did, his agenda, my day, my time, 15 minutes late. Don't want to talk about this. Been handled 3 years ago. We'll only talk about what I want and when I want on my agenda and my schedule. Now, it's not something as a journalist that I would appreciate, but in a way I admire it.
Here's the thing. I think Harbaugh tried to do the same thing, and you never allowed Harbaugh to get away with it. And what Harbaugh loved about you was that you were the only one who wouldn't accept his agenda, and that it was a fight. And to him, that those types of competition is the essence of life.
Right.
The essence of life. And the fact that these other beat writers wouldn't even want to compete on that level just confirms to him that they're not worth getting to know. They're not his kind of people. But you, it's like you see what he's doing. You're like, no, it's my agenda. And Harbaugh's like, oh, I was expecting a mere non-athlete to have that kind of will. Nice. Okay, we speak the same language. I don't know if Belichick would appreciate you like that. I have a feeling that he's more a little bit like Darth Vader, where if you go against him, he'll try to ruin you and your whole family. But
that's right. That he might.
Yeah, but
I might really try to. Yeah,
but I think the whole world would have got a kick out of you covering Bill Belichick every day. That would have been so much fun. And Bill Belichick is lucky that he didn't have to deal with you. That's the truth.
By the way, he knew Ira Miller, and Ira one time he wanted to talk to Belichick, and he got in touch with Patriots PR. Belichick called him right back. That's how much juice Ira had. The idea, Belichick wouldn't call anyone. Ira, it's Bill, what do you need? That's what happened.
Absolutely. I believe it. And one more thing. If Ira somehow got Kyle Shanahan's number and called him, do you understand how fast Kyle will call him back? Do you understand?
Yes.
Because Mike respects Ira.
They used to golf together. Mike and Ira. Together. Yeah.
Yes. So Ira's word kind of matters still.
Right. When he praises the Iggy.
And I got to say, Jed York is lucky that Ira doesn't cover this team anymore. Lucky that Ira doesn't cover this team anymore. If Ira kept covering this team into his 70s, it might have got to the point where Jed would have had to pay him off and be like, Ira, just take $2 million, go to Chicago and retire, because it's worth more to me to give you this $2 million and have you leave than to have you cover my team for another day. He could have stuck it out and got a big payday. It's not necessarily ethical. I'm just saying.
I got one more Belichick story.
All right.
From a person who saw it.
Okay.
Belichick was playing in some golf tournament. It may have been, the AT&T at Pebble Beach. It may have been. This person I know was there, and Belichick, before the round started, he was just practicing, hitting drives or whatever. So a father and his little son waited very politely and patiently until Belichick started to walk away. And he said, Bill, could you please sign this for my son? I'd really appreciate it. There was no one bothering Belichick. He was totally alone with this father and the father's son. And Belichick said, can you catch me later? And the guy said,
I'm catching you now. I just caught you.
Where you'll be later.
Yeah.
Could you do it now? And from what I understood, Belichick walked away. Could you catch me later?
Like, I know this is a once in a lifetime opportunity. The next time you get this opportunity, then we'll do it.
Yeah, right. I mean,
God, I gotta walk over here right now. I was kind of planning on leaving and going about my life and never thinking about you again. So bye.
I did not see that, but someone who allegedly this happened. Someone who alleged to me that he was there saw that happen. And
what's interesting is like he's like in commercials now. Have you seen his commercials?
Yeah.
They're trying to like give him a personality. What is that? He has no personality. He's like, is he like an ironic figure with his stone face? No, he's just. I still believe he's had a negative impact on the NFL. Every team has turned their
journalists.
Every team has turned their facility into Fort Knox because he did, and he's a lying, spying, cheating.
He's allegedly.
He's gotten caught. So everyone is afraid. If we don't shut down, I mean, There could be drones spying on him. I mean, who knows what kind of 21st century tactics he has.
He does have that reputation. I don't know how true it is.
As people act like he's turned football into modern warfare, where everything is at fair game, and you got to protect yourself 7 days a week, not just on Sundays. So
yeah. Iggy, didn't he once get caught with something with photos or?
Oh yeah, a bunch of times. He got caught last year. One of his guys was videotaping the sideline calls of the Bengals,
and he said it was a mistake, right?
Oh yeah, it was a mistake. Yeah, they misinterpreted the rules, or yeah, it's great, dude.
Yeah.
Anyway, so
one thing about Belichick, I look at his face. I've never actually seen him smile.
No,
he looks to me like he's a person who walks through life sucking on a lemon.
Yeah, like he's got that sour stomach. You know that feeling where it's almost a little bit like nausea, and you're like, oh, like not eat breakfast. Like, I shouldn't have had that cup of coffee. That's what he looks like.
Yeah. Like, do you need milk of magnesia, Bill, or something?
Yeah. He needs milk of magnesia. So let's leave it right there. That's a good show. We went from a Napa cab to milk of magnesia in 60 minutes.
Maybe after the cab, you might need milk of magnesia.
It couldn't hurt. It couldn't hurt. All right, Dad. I love you, and I'll call you in a minute.
You.
All right.
Okay.
See you.